Commander Vextor of the Krillian Empire stood on the bridge of his warship, watching Earth grow larger on the view screen. His 4 arms flexed with anticipation. The humans had refused their surrender terms. Now they would learn what it meant to defy the galaxy's most feared warriors. "Sir, the human fleet is smaller than expected," his tactical officer reported. "Only 50 ships against our 300. Vextor's mandibles clicked in amusement. The fools. They think their primitive vessels can stand against Krillian might. The Krillians had conquered 1,000 worlds. Their warriors were bred for combat, standing 9 feet tall with natural armor plating and redundant organs. Humans, according to their intelligence reports, were soft, fragile creatures who barely reached 6 feet and had only 2 arms. This would be a massacre. "Open communications," Vextor ordered. "Let me speak to their commander one last time." The screen flickered, revealing a human female with short gray hair and calm brown eyes. Admiral Sarachin looked almost bored. "Commander Vextor," she said, "have you reconsidered our offer?" "Your offer?" Vextor's voice rumbled with disbelief. "You dare make demands when you're outnumbered 6-1? "Numbers aren't everything," Admiral Chin replied. "This is your last chance. Leave our system peacefully, and we'll forget this happened." The bridge erupted in harsh Krillian laughter. Vextor silenced them with a gesture. "Humans," he said, savoring the word, "we've heard stories about your species. How you barely survived on your own planet. How you needed tools because you lack claws. How you must cook your food because your stomachs are weak. And now you think you can threaten us." Admiral Chen's expression didn't change. "I'm trying to save your lives." "Enough." Vextor Huarit, "Prepare for annihilation." He cut the transmission and turned to his crew. "All ships, attack formation. Let's end this quickly." The Krillian fleet surged forward, a wall of metal and firepower bearing down on the small human contingent. Vextor expected the humans to scatter, to run. Instead, they did something unexpected. They accelerated toward the Krillian fleet. "What are they doing?" the tactical officer muttered. "Suicide run," another suggested. "Desperation?" But Vextor noticed something odd. The human ships weren't moving in standard formation. They were spreading out, creating gaps, almost like they were inviting the Krillians to surround them. "It's a trap," he realized. "All ships, maintain formation. Don't break." Too late. His aggressive subcommanders, eager for glory, had already ordered their squadrons to envelope the human fleet. The Krillian ships spread out, confident in their numerical superiority. That's when the humans struck. The 50 human ships suddenly became hundreds. Decoy drones, hidden behind sophisticated cloaking technology, materialized around the Krillian fleet. But these weren't just decoys. They were armed. "Impossible!" Vextor shouted. "Our sensors should have detected them." The space around them erupted in violence. But it wasn't the kind of combat the Krillians were used to. Instead of massive beam weapons or plasma cannons, the humans used something else. Thousands of tiny projectiles, accelerated to incredible speeds, tore through space. Kinetic weapons? The weapons officer sounded confused. "But those are primitive. Our shields can..." The sentence died as the first Krillian cruiser exploded. Then another, and another. "Shields failing," someone screamed. "The projectiles are too small, too fast. Our shields can't track them all." Vextor watched in horror as his mighty fleet began to crumble. The human kinetic weapons weren't just bullets. Each one was a smart projectile, equipped with its own guidance system, designed to find weak points in Krillian shielding. "Return fire," he commanded. "All weapons." The Krillian fleet's energy weapons lashed out, brilliant beams of destruction seeking human targets. But the human ships moved like nothing Vextor had ever seen. They didn't fly in straight lines or predictable arcs. They tumbled, spun, and changed directions seemingly at random. How are they not tearing themselves apart? The science officer wondered aloud. Those maneuvers should liquefy their crews. Then Vextor saw it. The human ships weren't just evading. They were hurting the Krillian fleet. pushing them together, limiting their movement options. "Break formation," he ordered. "Scatter. Don't let them." A massive explosion rocked his flagship. Warning lights bathed the bridge in red. "Hull breach on deck 7 through 12. We've lost engine room 3. "How?" Vextor demanded. "Our armor is, sir." The tactical officer's voice was high with panic. "The humans, they're not targeting our ships randomly. They're hitting the exact same spots repeatedly. They're drilling through our armor." It was true. The human weapons weren't trying to overwhelm the Krillian defenses with brute force. They were using precision, patience, and calculated strikes to methodically dismantle ships that should have been invulnerable. "And, sir," the officer continued, his voice dropping, "I'm detecting human life signs inside our fleet formation." "What?" Vextor spun toward the sensor station. "That's impossible. We'd have detected any boarding craft." "Not craft, sir. Individuals. In spacesuits." The main screen zoomed in, and Vextor felt his blood freeze. Human soldiers in powered armor were moving through space, jetpacks carrying them between Krillian ships. They weren't just wearing spacesuits. They were wearing battle armor that made them look like mechanical demons. As he watched, one human landed on a Krillian destroyer's hull. The soldier placed something against the armor plating and jetted away. Seconds later, a shaped charge detonated, opening a hole in the hull. More humans poured through. They're boarding our ships during combat," someone whispered, "while traveling through open space, under fire. That's insane." Reports flooded in from across the fleet. Human boarding parties were taking ship after ship. The Krillians were superior in strength, but in the confined corridors of their own vessels, human tactics prevailed. The humans used the ship's own layouts against them, setting ambushes, venting atmosphere, turning internal defenses against their creators. "Admiral Chun is hailing us," the communications officer announced. Vextor stared at the carnage on his screens. A third of his fleet was gone. Another third was being boarded. His mighty armada was being torn apart by a force 1/6 its size. "Put her through," he said quietly. Admiral Chen appeared on the screen. Behind her, Vextor could see a tactical display showing the battle. The human losses were minimal. "Commander," she said, "I'm offering you one more chance. Surrender now, and we'll accept your crews as prisoners of war. Continue fighting and—" She didn't need to finish. "How?" Vextor asked. "My intelligence said humans were weak, fragile, primitive." Chen's expression might have been pity. "Commander, we evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day. We had predators, diseases, natural disasters, and, worst of all, each other. We didn't become Earth's dominant species by being the strongest or the fastest. We survived by being the smartest, the most adaptable, and the most ruthlessly efficient when threatened." She leaned forward. "Your people evolved as apex predators. You never had to struggle, never had to innovate to survive. We spent our entire history finding ways to kill things bigger and stronger than us, first with rocks and sticks, then with metal and gunpowder, and now, well, now you're seeing what thousands of years of that kind of thinking produces." Another Krillian ship exploded in the background. "But here's what really matters," Chin continued. "We don't want this fight. We didn't ask for it. But you brought it to our door, and now you're learning why that was a mistake. So I'll ask you again, surrender or be destroyed. You have 30 seconds. Vextor looked around his bridge. His crew, the proud warriors of Caruello, looked terrified. They'd come expecting to fight prey and instead found themselves facing predators unlike anything they'd imagined. Not predators of strength, but predators of intellect and will. "All ships," Vextor said slowly, "cease fire. We surrender." As the weapons fell silent, Vextor had one more question. "Admiral Chun, those stories about humans being weak." "Oh, physically we are weaker than you," she admitted. "But, Commander, human history has one consistent lesson. The most dangerous predator isn't the one with the biggest claws. It's the one smart enough to build a better weapon. The transmission ended, leaving Vextor to contemplate a new and terrifying truth. The humans weren't just another species. They were something far more dangerous, a race that had turned survival itself into a science, and war into an art form. As human ships moved in to accept their surrender, Vextor made a mental note. When he returned to KRYL, if he was allowed to return, he would make sure everyone understood, never, ever fight the humans. But the real terror was just beginning, because what Vextor didn't know, what he was about to learn, was that this battle, this crushing defeat of the mighty Krillian Empire, was considered by human standards to be a minor skirmish. Admiral Chen's fleet wasn't even a full battle group. It was a patrol unit. The humans had defeated the terror of the galaxy with what they considered a police action. And somewhere in the depths of his warrior soul, Vextor felt something he'd never experienced before, something that would haunt him for the rest of his days. The cold touch of true fear. The boarding parties were efficient, professional, and terrifyingly polite. They moved through the Krillian ships with practiced ease, disarming warriors twice their size with non-lethal weapons and restraint techniques that spoke of extensive training. "Please remain calm," a human soldier told a group of Krillian warriors. "You'll be processed and transferred to a holding facility. You'll be treated according to the Geneva Convention." "What's the Geneva Convention?" one Krillian asked. "Rules we made for treating prisoners humanely," the soldier replied. "Even enemies deserve dignity." This confused the Krillians even more. They had expected brutality from their conquerors, perhaps torture or execution. Instead, they received medical attention, food, and even entertainment during transport. Vextor found himself in Admiral Chen's office aboard the human flagship. It was a modest room, decorated with images of Earth landscapes and what appeared to be family photos. "There," Chen offered, pouring from an elegant pot. "You're offering me refreshment?" "Why wouldn't I? You're no longer a threat, and being civilized costs nothing." She sat across from him. "Commander, I want you to understand something. We didn't enjoy this. Every human soldier out there would have preferred to be home with their families. Then why fight so effectively?" Chen smiled sadly. "Because we learned long ago that the best way to ensure peace is to be so good at war that no one wants to fight you. It's a paradox, I know. Your soldiers, they board ships in open space. They use weapons we considered obsolete. They fight without honor. Honor?" Chen set down her cup. "Commander, honor is a luxury for those who can afford to lose. Humans have rarely had that option. We fight to win, to survive, to protect what we love. If that means using primitive kinetic weapons that your shields can't stop, or sending soldiers to do the impossible, then that's what we do. But the risks, every human soldier is a volunteer. They know the risks. They train for years, not just in combat, but in physics, engineering, psychology. Each boarding party member could have been a scientist or engineer in civilian life. Instead, they chose to stand between humanity and threats like you." Vextor was quiet for a long moment. "What happens now?" "Now? Your fleet will be escorted to a neutral station. Your crews will be repatriated once your government signs a non-aggression pact. Your ships will be returned, minus weapons. And, hopefully, this will be the last time we meet under these circumstances." "You're letting us go?" "Of course. We're not conquerors, Commander. We just want to be left alone to explore, to grow, to live. But," her expression hardened, "if anyone threatens that again, they'll face the same response. Or worse." "Worse?" "This was a patrol fleet, Commander. If Earth itself had been threatened, you would have faced our main battle fleets. And trust me, you don't want to see what humans are capable of when we're truly desperate." As Vextor was escorted back to join his crew, he couldn't shake Chen's words. The humans had defeated them not through superior strength or technology, but through superior thinking. They'd turned warfare into a series of problems to be solved, and they'd solved each one with ruthless efficiency. The journey to the neutral station took 3 days. During that time, Vextor observed his captors closely. Human soldiers chatted with each other, shared meals, played games. They showed fear, joy, sadness, all the emotions Krillians associated with weakness.